Hi everyone, Octaract here. Today I'm releasing a tool that you can use to quickly make backups of your game files in Geometry Dash. This tool works on both Windows and Linux, and I will be showing you how it works and how to set it up. Let's begin with an overview of the files Geometry Dash uses. Geometry Dash stores game files in two locations. The first one is located in your Program Files directory alongside the files used by many other Steam games. The path is C:"Program Files x86, Steam, Steam Apps, Common, Geometry Dash, and then Resources. These are the assets that Geometry Dash uses, and this is where you'd go to install a different menu song or a texture pack. If you change the download location of custom songs using the in-game setting, then they'll be saved here as well. On a multi-user Windows system, this folder is shared by every user, so a change here will affect everyone who uses the computer. The second location, which is of interest to us for this video, is inside your app data folder. The exact path depends on your username, but you can access it by typing %local app data % inside of File Explorer's address bar. From here you can go to the folder named Geometry Dash, and there are your game files. Also, as a quick note, if you play on Absolute's 1.9 private server, then the folder named DontRenameMeThxDash is where it stores its copy of your game files. Anyway, each user has an app data folder on a Windows system, so any changes you make here will only affect you, provided that you aren't sharing your Windows account with anyone else. Note that I said Windows account and not Microsoft account. This is just the user account you set up on your operating system. The files stored here, like ccGameManager.dat and ccLocalLevels.dat, contain your player stats, settings, downloaded levels, and even your password. Therefore, you do want to be careful with these files and not give them out to random people. Also, if you have not changed the download location for custom songs, then they will download to this location instead. If you're on Linux, all game files installed and managed by Steam are stored in the user folder, so nothing is shared between users. Also, Proton, the compatibility layer used to run Windows games, creates a Windows file system structure for each game to use. So once you're in that part of your file system on Linux, you just have to navigate to the Windows locations I showed earlier to find the files. Now let's talk about the tool I made. What the program does is it copies the game files containing player stats and downloaded levels and places them in a new directory. Essentially, it's a single-click backup. Let's see it in action. First, as you can see, Geometry Dash is closed. It's not running on my system currently. Inside of my app data folder, we have the files that I want to create a backup of. And then over here in Dropbox, we have the folder where I want the backup to be created. So now all I have to do is click on this handy shortcut on my desktop, and it will create a backup inside of my Dropbox folder. See this folder here? It was not here a second ago. Inside, we've got a copy of all the game files, and they're automatically backed up to Dropbox because Dropbox is running on my system. The folder's name is based on the current date and time. So what's really nice about this program is that I can do this whenever I want with just a single click, making it convenient to do regularly, such as after beating a difficult demon, reaching the next 100 stars, or making progress on creating a level. Also, if you want to use this for both Geometry Dash and Absolute's 1.9 server, then you just have to duplicate this program and perform the setup twice, once for Geometry Dash and once for the private server. So now that you know what the tool does, let's talk about some of the details of the program, and then I'll show you how to set it up on both Windows and Linux. When you download the zip file linked in the video description and open it up, you will see two folders and a text file. The text file is a software license. I chose to use unlicensed, which is a software license that puts my program in the public domain. That means you can legally modify and redistribute my program with no restrictions whatsoever. The Windows folder contains the executable file, a configuration file, and the source code for the executable file if you want to modify and recompile the executable. The Linux folder contains a bash script and a .desktop file that will do the same thing on Linux as the Windows executable and configuration file do on Windows. When you download the zip file, you should run it through a hashing algorithm to ensure the contents are the same as what I provided. To do this on Windows, open the command prompt and use the cd command to change directories to where the zip file is stored. In this case, I went to my downloads directory. Then run certutil -hash file, the name of the file, which is going to be gddatacopy.zip, and then SHA-512. Press enter, and the hash of the zip file will be computed and displayed in the terminal. On Linux, the process is the same, except you need to run SHA-512 sum, followed by the name of the file. You will want to compare the computed hash file with the one in the description or on screen in this video. A matching hash indicates that the zip files are identical, meaning that the zip file you downloaded is exactly the same as the zip file I have here in this video. This means that if you can trust me to create software, then you can trust the contents of the zip file even if your operating system displays warnings when you run an executable. One important thing I should mention is that if I ever provide an update to the program, I will post a second download link in the video description with a second file hash. Of course, I cannot show the hash of a future version of the program in this video, so you'll just have to compare against the file hash in the video description. This does change the trust dynamic slightly, as you'll be trusting me to maintain control over this YouTube channel. Therefore, I will never remove the original download link, even if I do release an updated version of this program. Now that we have verified the zip file, let's get it set up on Windows. First, copy the executable and the configuration file out of the zip file and move them to wherever you want. I'm going to go to the Downloads folder, but it really doesn't matter where you put them. You might want to store them with your backups or just in some general place for executable files. The choice is ultimately yours. However, do note that the executable file and its configuration file need to stay together in the same folder, and you cannot rename the configuration file. Next, open the configuration file. There are only 4 lines of configuration, and the rest of this file is just written instructions that you could follow in lieu of this video. The first line is the path to the folder containing your game files. To get this path, open File Explorer and type %local app data % inside of the address bar. From here, go to the Geometry Dash folder and then copy the address out of the address bar and paste it into the first line. Make sure to get rid of the chevron at the start of the line because that's just a placeholder indicating that you need to put something there. Then also make sure that there are no trailing backslashes at the end of the path. For the second line, we'll go to the place where we want the backups to be stored. In this case, I'll use Dropbox. Once inside the folder, copy the path from File Explorer's address bar and paste it into the text file, again, getting rid of the chevron and making sure that there are no trailing backslashes. Next is the date format for the folder that will be created for each backup. I provided a default here, but you can change it if you want. The link in the configuration file provides more information on how to construct the date format. I won't mess with it in this video, but you can do some tests on your own if you want. Finally, on the fourth line, we can set how long the success message will be displayed for, or if it'll be displayed at all. If I put a 0 here instead of a 5, then you won't see a success message. If I put something other than a number, like the letter A for example, then the success message will not go away unless I interact with it. For this demonstration, I'll go with 2.5 so that the success message closes itself after 2.5 seconds. Now we just have to save the configuration file and run the executable. You can see how the success message went away on its own after a little bit. It'll go away sooner if you acknowledge it, like if you press enter or click the OK button. Now if we go to the Dropbox folder, we can see that a new folder has been created with the current date and time, and it has our game files inside of it. The last step to finish the setup process is to create a shortcut to the executable and then place it on the desktop or wherever is convenient. So we just have to right click on it, create shortcut, and then from here we can, for example, cut this and put it on the desktop right next to the one that I had earlier for our demonstration. And now we're done. You're all set up. The setup on Linux is similar to that on Windows. First, go to the Linux folder inside of the zip file. Then, copy the bash script and the desktop file and put them wherever you want on your system. I say wherever, but there are some limitations as to where you can put the script and desktop file. They must both reside on a volume that uses a Linux file system, like ext4, btrfs, or xfs. They will fail to execute if stored on an ntfs or FAT32 volume. Also, some desktop environments will not be able to execute the script if its absolute path contains any spaces. Therefore, I recommend keeping these files either in a bin folder in your home folder or in your .config folder. Once you figure out where to store these files, open the bash script in a text editor. You will notice 4 variables near the beginning of the document, 2 of which are already set to default values. The first variable needs to be set to the path of the folder containing your game files. To locate this path, you need to go to your Steam folder. If Steam is installed as a Flatpak, then you'll want to check your .var folder. .var. Here we go. And then go inside of app. And then Steam might be storing its files here among all of your apps. On the other hand, if you installed Steam as a native package, then you'll have a .steam folder in your home folder. In my case, there's a subfolder called Debian installation because I'm using a Debian distribution, and that contains everything of interest here. Once inside, we're looking for a folder named Steam Apps. Then from in here, we want to go to Compat Data, and then we're looking for a folder named 322170, which is Geometry Dash's game ID. Then we go to PFX, and then drive C. And now we're actually inside of that Windows file system structure that Proton creates. From here, we go to Users, Steam User, App Data, Local, and then Geometry Dash. And this is where the game files are stored. Once you're in this directory, copy the path out of your file manager's address bar, and then place it between the single quotes for the first variable in the bash script. Make sure that there are no trailing slashes and that it's an absolute path, meaning that it starts with a slash. For the second variable, navigate to the location where you want to store your backups in your file manager and then copy the path out of your address bar. So I made a folder here for that purpose. And then again, make sure that it's an absolute path, meaning that it starts with a slash and that there are no trailing slashes at the end. For the date format, we'll leave it as is, but if you want to change it, then information on how to do so is available from your terminal. To do that, you just have to type man date, and you'll get the man page that describes how to do everything. And right here, these are all of the codes to parse the date and put it into a different format. For the closing instructions variable, we can set how long the success message will be displayed for, or if it'll be displayed at all. If I put a 0 here instead of 5, you won't see a success message. If I put something other than a number, like the letter A for example, then the success message will not go away unless I interact with it. For this demonstration, I'll go with 3.25 so that the success message closes itself after 3¼ seconds. You are now done editing the bash script. Save the file and then open the .desktop file in a text editor. Here we've got the exec field, which needs to point to the bash script. Now, some file managers give you the option to right-click on a file and copy the absolute path to the file. Some don't. They are a little bit more onerous, and in that case, you'll need to use the terminal to get this path. Anyway, once you have the path, paste it into the exec field here after the equal sign. If the path has spaces in it, you'll want to encapsulate it inside of single quotes. However, do note that not all desktop files will interpret a path with spaces in it, even if you provide the single quotes. In our case, it's not a problem because there are no spaces in this path. Anyways, save the file, and then you have just a couple of last things to do. Now, we need to make both of these files executable. Oftentimes you can just right-click on them and go into Properties and set the permissions. However, another way to do that is using the terminal. So if we open up a terminal, we can right-click and do Open Terminal here. Let's also zoom in real quick. We can just do a quick listing of all the files, and here we can see the permissions. So as we can see, the execute bit is not set, and it's not set for us or our group or for the other user. So to rectify that, what we can do is we can set chmod, and then we can use u+x, and we can point to both of these files at the same time using globbing. So we'll type gdd and then star, and that will affect both files at the same time. Another option that we can use is 744, which just sets the permissions directly. Either way is good. So we'll go with u+x here, since that is always going to do what we want, regardless of what the existing permissions are. And now if we just do a listing again, we can see now just the owner of the file can execute them, and that happens to be me, which means it'll work. Alright, so now that the files are executable, we can run the .desktop file to run the backup program. So let's just do that. Oh, you can see how the success message went away on its own after a little bit. It'll go away sooner if you acknowledge it by pressing enter. If we now look at the folder that we designated to store backups, we can see that a backup has been created with our game files inside of it. Alright, now the last little bit of setup that we need to do is place the .desktop file wherever we want. That's right, it doesn't need to stay with the bash script. Just know that if you ever rename or move the bash script, then the .desktop file won't be able to find it unless you update the path in the exec field. Anyway, if you want the .desktop file to appear in your application menu, then you'll want to go to your home folder, go to .local, go to share, and then go to applications. If you paste it in here, then it will show up inside of your application menu. Oh, the other thing you can do is you can create a symbolic link to this .desktop file. So we'll just copy the location, create a new basic link, give it a name like GD backup, and then put in the path to the desktop file. And then from here we can cut this and put it wherever we want, like on the desktop, for example. Then if we close everything out, we can see that this link is now right here, and we can click on it and it will do everything that the .desktop file does. And that is it. You are done with the setup on Linux. Hopefully you will find this backup tool useful, or at least maybe you learned something about where Geometry Dash stores files or how file hashing works. If you encounter any issues or have ideas for additional features you want to see, leave a comment on this video and I will do my best to get back to you. Anyway, that's it from me. I'll see you in the next video.